So thank you all for sharing. I am going to just talk about my journey as it pertains to being a regular guy from the regular corner of Earth. And my journey starts with uh, 2010 when I began gardening. And I began gardening purely as a therapeutic aspect. Um, at that time, I was really having a lot of issues with PTSD and anxiety. And I was a combat medic, and I served in the military. And ever since I came back, I was having real life issues, like real life issues. And I didn't really know where to turn. And I actually checked myself in, and I kind of got therapy. I sought out help. And my nickname is Nature Boy. So I was always outside, and I was always on the move. I was always hiking and camping. But I think now that I know, I was really doing that as a response to kind of feed the anxiety of what if something happens. And it was just, but that's my nickname. So I went to therapy, and one of my therapists, she was kind of like I'm going to say a hippie-ish type of lady. You know, um, she was cool, and she was like, "Hey, Nature Boy, you need to just slow down. You need to get outside and ground yourself." And I'm just like, "Hey, man, like, that's what I do. Like, I'm at Stone Mountain Park. I'm in the woods all day." And she's like, "No, like, you need to ground with intention." And I'm thinking, from my point of view, I'm thinking intention, like crisscross posing on the, crystals everywhere, sunlight. And I was like, that's not really going to resonate with that's not going to resonate with me. And she was like, well, no, just gardening is also a way of grounding. And I'm literally trying to be better. I'm trying to show up for my family in a more intentional way. I'm trying to be a better father, better husband, better child, better member of the community. So I was really approaching this with the intention of really getting down to the nuts and bolts of what was wrong and what was going on and how to rectify it. And so I delved into gardening, and it didn't take long for Mother Nature to do what she does best. And I began to actually feel that healing taking place as I was witnessing Mother Earth work her magic. And so for the first 3 years, from 2010 almost all the way to 2014, I was literally like, I chose the avenue of chaos gardening, if anybody's familiar with that method. I'm not the metric type of guy. I'm not reading the back of the seed label. I'm not planting depth and seeds, and those are all suggestions to me. I'm doing it all, man. Again, I'm really doing it with the intention to just, let's see if she could do this. And I'm just sitting back watching. It's beautiful, man, because I'm really like just marveling at nature. And we're creating this relationship. We're creating this bond. I'm getting her rhythm. I'm learning her cycles through my mishaps, but I'm learning in an organic way. And so I wasn't really trying to quantify the data or reach any goal. I'm literally just watching the tomato plant start off here and then bloom, and then, wow, we got tomatoes. And I was just enamored by it. Fast forward to 2014, where I remember this day like it was yesterday. I was coming home from work. I was working at airlines about 45 minutes away at the time. I was on the east side of Atlanta, very much a marginalized community, low income. And I was stopping in the store on a Friday evening because my wife had just had our baby, and I was trying to gather some things for the weekend. So I know I had to work some double shifts, and I didn't want her having to get out. So I stopped at our local Walmart, and by the time I get through the threshold of the door, it was pandemonium going on. It was pure chaos. It was carts, and I think again my anxiety kind of triggered my response, and I was just so shocked by everything going on. I immediately had to retreat. I had to go back outside the door, and I couldn't really engage. I didn't really understand what was going on. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't really try to gather any intel. I just had to bolt because I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I got to go. I went down the street, and there was another grocery store. The only one was right down the street, and it was about like maybe 2 minutes away, literally across the street. And I went into that with the same. I was more prepared, I guess, in this instance. So when I kind of crept through the door, it was the same exact thing. So I kind of stayed, that little breezeway, the door, you can get your little hand card and maybe pick up the coupon. I kind of like stayed there and kind of looked and tried to listen to see what was going on. And I was gathering the information, and I realized they were saying the EBT system was down. And I kind of stepped in because I'm still hearing people check out. I'm still hearing the beep going on. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So I finally step in, and I'm kind of assessing the situation. And I just remember somebody saying, what about the kids? What about the kids? How am I going to feed my kids? And it was like, it was almost like echoing in my mind. And I'm like, wow, what's going on? Like, and the lady comes over and she's like, hey, if anybody has cash or card, I can take you right here. And I'm like, what's going on? And everybody's waiting for the register. And she's like, no, these are EBT people. They're waiting for the EBT system and it's down right now. And I'm like, okay, so I can go shop and check out. She's like, yes. So I go grab a couple things, bread, staple items. I'm in and out. And by the time I'm walking to my car, and again, from my, I guess, I don't know if it's military or preparedness, but either way, I assess things in a holistic value. And I kind of always go to the worst case scenario. And so in my head, I'm playing in my mind, because again, I have a newborn now and I already had a child, but I'm thinking in my head, what if that was me having to depend on EBT and I couldn't feed my family? What if I wasn't in the position to pay for my food this time around? And then next step forward for me, and it's a big step, and it's like, what if the food wasn't here at all? Like, what happens if this is a community that's relying on the grocery store and there's no groceries? So from 2014, I took a more specific approach, more calculated approach to gardening. And 2014 all the way up, I really got into the metrics of gardening and really studying how to add the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium, like what the plants really needed. And we fast tracked to 2017, where I was like, okay, now we got to plot of land. Because before, on the east side, I didn't have a yard. I was in a duplex and I was growing buckets in my other neighbor's yard. So I didn't have a yard. So I literally knocked on my neighbor's yard. Like, hey, can I just put buckets out here? And they let me do it for 4 years. And fast track 2017, we actually bought a larger property, and it's in Riverdale, where we are right now, south of Atlanta. And we started to embark on our farming aspect, because now we had this larger property, it's 3 acres. And we thought that, well, I'm gonna say I thought, my wife was kind of just there encouraging me. I was like, hey, I'm not only gonna grow food for my family, I'm gonna grow it for my community, because I know I can make this impact now, and maybe I can help them in that way. So it was really a shot in the dark. It was really a blind throw. And my wife had filled out the paperwork, and literally within like a couple weeks time, we had our farm track number and everything sought out. And I was like, wow, that's it. And they had one more call to make to us. And I'm on the phone talking to the lady. I didn't think it was that official. I thought it was going to be like a long, tedious process to have a farm. And I really went in thinking I wasn't going to be able to have a farm, because I'm not zoned agricultural and all these things. But I'm talking to the lady at USDA, and she's telling me like, okay, well, are you going to be a production farm or what kind? I'm just like, yeah, we're going to grow food. And she's like, well, you can go ahead. This side of your land needs to be clear cut in order for the amount of sunlight to come in. And I'm like, hold on, what side? She's like, yeah, you got a lake in the back. And I'm like, so you're looking at my property right now, like while we're talking. So they're doing it through the Google Maps. Very insincere to me. And again, when she said you need to clear cut your land, that was that first draw. Because again, remember from 2010 all the way up to 2014, I'm establishing this relationship. And this oak tree is not just an oak tree. It has a name, and it's an ecosystem. And all these plants are really specific to the footprint of the earth. And I'm like, how can you, as the USDA, tell me to clear cut all? It didn't make any sense. So I immediately was like, hey, well, I might not be a production farm. I might do something else. So everything went forward, and she gave me the farm track number. I hung up the phone, and immediately I'm not gonna say I backed out of farming, but I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be a production farmer. Let me go see. And that's my methodology is reverse engineering. So I got all the official paperwork done, and now I'm gonna figure out how this thing works. So I started going around and scheduling consults, or I was just going to other farms that were already established, well known in the area. They had staff and everything. So I was going to seek counsel from them. And I started going around and gathering the intel. I'm asking the questions. What's your market base? What are you selling? How are you doing it? Who are you reaching? And every single farm said the exact same thing. All their underlying base of infrastructure, I say as far as money, came from subsidies. So all these urban farms that I went to had to be funded almost 100% of the time to make them operable. And to me, that was EBT all over again. And I'm fast tracking, like, so if you're waiting for this 20, 40,000 to pay for your part-time employees or to pay, that's you're dependent. You're not in any position to really call any shots. And to me, that was immediate, like I can't do this. So I really backed out of agriculture in a whole, and my ideal was just to figure out what I was going to do. So I say we have this 3 acres now. Maybe I won't be a farm yet, or as far as operation, but I know I can feed my family now. I know I can actually put these practices that I've been learning for the 4 years in this small little duplex. I can now transfer it to this yard. And we started to grow our own food with the caloric value in mind. And I learned very quickly that that's a whole nother type of growing. That is not the same as farming, production scale farming, and sustaining oneself is a whole nother realm. So I started digging deep in the world wide web of YouTube, man, and I was running into channels like Homestead Heart, Off Grid with Doug and Stacy, and all these other channels that I started really, gravitating towards, and I was getting all their information, and I learned that it was a term called homesteading. Anybody homesteading here? Anybody? Got a couple of homesteaders. So anybody want to say what the objective of homesteading is? Anybody? Be self-sufficient. In essence, to not have to rely on any outside thing to bring into your functioning realm of sustainability. So I started to, again, mimic what I'm saying on YouTube. And I'm like, okay, we started growing, again, crops within caloric value, but then we started raising animals. And anybody in here familiar with chicken math? Ever heard of that term? Chicken math happened on us, and we started off with 5 chickens, and then we got 12 more chickens, and then we got sheep, and then we got quail, and then we got rabbits. I'm just gonna point to these goats. Don't get them. Dude, please don't get them. Now, I love them too until they hop in them fences. 8 foot. I don't know how they do it, man. They're amazing. That term scapegoat came to full reality, like for me. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Can I come in?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
You may enter.
All right.
So scapegoat was a real thing. So if y'all think about animals, man, just do your research on goats first. I'm just gonna say that. But that's really what happened. And it was really, I'm not gonna say a whirlwind yet, but that's a lot of things to manage being a first-time farmer, first-time homesteader, first-time anything having to do with agriculture. Once you start delving into the animals, it starts to compile as you learn the food and the rhythm of how much you're growing and what you're doing. And then my wife became an herbalist, so she's trying to learn how to work with the native species and how to make salves and tinctures and all these things. And I had the idea because prior to that, so I was always engaged in my community. So even before I started gardening, I was doing camping, things for kids. I was doing fire starting, land navigation. I was using, and that's my methodology, is use what you have where you are to impact in some kind of way. So even though I was having my own personal battles with anxiety, I was still mindful enough to be some kind of resource to my community. So I turned and applied the same thing literally with our newly made homestead. And we started to educate. And I said, well, I don't know enough to educate adults. That's kind of like, adults might ask more questions, but kids, I can educate some kids now, man. They gonna go with everything. So we started doing inversion canning. We started seed saving, seed starting. We started teaching them how to make raised beds. We started teaching them animal husbandry. Anything we learned, we started pouring into these children. And we had a whole program we called Back to Basics, and it was an add-on or adjunct because we were homeschoolers as well. So it was an adjunct to your core curriculum that whatever you came up with, it was like a fun day, a socializing day. And so we started to really get a lot of steam with the kids in the community. And next thing I knew, the parents were showing up 30 minutes early, 45 minutes early, an hour early. And they're really immersed in it too. And they're like, well, hey, can we come tomorrow and kind of be a part of the whole day? And I was like, well, no. They were like, well, how about if you did this for adults? Would you be open to kind of open it? So that's kind of where our actual operation came up. So 2017, we found our niche within the agricultural spectrum, and we immersed ourselves in agro-tourism and agro-education. So that same framework that we ran with the children, we were confident that it worked. And again, I always started off my workshops or engagements with authenticity. And I always tell my community, hey, this ain't the best way to do it. It might be 1,000 other ways to do it, but I guarantee you it works. So we tried it, it's tested, it's proved, it works. And that level of transparency kept me out of the framework of having to feel like I have to master it first, again, because I'm just trying to give what I have. And I framed it up, and we started really getting motion in Atlanta. And a lot of people started to come to our farm to get educated on food preservation, again, seed to harvest, container gardening. We did wine making workshops. We ran the agro-tourism with our micro cabins. We were trying to give people a more authentic space of how they feel to be off the land. And solar panels, I learned how to do solar panels and all. Again, this is that self-sustainable mentality. I was just trying to bring it to the community. So we ran this program for about 2 years, and we started to get a good base going. So we had to do what everybody else did on YouTube, which was go get bigger land, more land, so I can get more pigs or more animals, and we can actually sustain ourselves. Because right now I'm just quantifying the data. We don't have enough skin in the game to really say that we're able to close that loop. So I'm thinking like everybody else, and I'm going to go to the country and grab some land. Go ahead, next slide, please. So we did what most people do. 2019, we went looking for land out in the country. So we went 2.5 hours out from Atlanta. We looked at zoning, we looked at ordinances, we looked at income, demographics. We looked at a lot of different things and chose a couple counties that resonated. And we actually settled on 87 acres of land, 2.5 hours outside of Atlanta. And the dream, the vision was something like this, very picturesque, man. And we went down there with the mentality like that all country folks, and I think we fantasize about that, like being in the city, we're longing to be in the country because we think that land, and that's our freedom, and that's our people out there, the slower way of life, on the front porch, shelling peas, man, you just really the country style, right? And that vision was there, and we got out to the country, and anybody from the country in here? I got out there and I was like, wow, it's not the same. It's not what I thought it was gonna be. And all the country folks are looking at me like, man, you came from Atlanta to come here? You crazy? Like, we want to get there. So I quickly realized that most of the people in the country were not really living the lifestyle that was portrayed in my mind of what country living was. They were more so just living the city. It's the mentality. I guess that's what I learned. And again, I really learned a great lesson out there, though, because even being out there and not having that community or that culture established, I still thought, well, I just bring the culture here. And again, when you go out to the sticks, I call it, it's really, if you don't really have enough of the infrastructure already, it's hard to get it out there. So I ran into 1,001 hurdles trying to get a skid steer out, delivered, a backhoe, or anything I couldn't pull with my truck. And it was like pulling teeth every time I tried to do something. Again, I didn't have really a community to rely on to point me in the right direction. So I'm really out there by myself. So that whole 87 acres thing really toppled for us because we didn't sell our land in Riverdale. That was the farm that was supposed to be funneling the cash to keep this available. And we were going to build this community out there. But again, I learned the best lesson I could have ever learned is that oftentimes when we talk about food security, we tie it to land. And at this point in time, I had 87 acres of land. It was fruit orchards on there and everything. And I felt just as much anxiety as I did when I had nothing. And that's a hard thing to comprehend, but I'm saying on 87 acres, that's a lot of work. That's a whole lot of work. And so anybody who really stewards the land understands that responsibility you have to the land. And that's just a lot. That's a hard thing to chew. So we went back to Riverdale. We let that piece of property go. We went back to Riverdale. And I learned the valuable lesson that it was actually the people. The people is the main resource. We are the resource that is more important than anything. So I went back to Metro Atlanta with that same mentality. And 2020 hit. And of course, it did what it did and kind of provoked or created that catalyst for people to kind of see what was going on in the fragility of our food system And the question started to be posed, well, what happens when the food is not here? And so I started to really organize with a little bit more enthusiasm, a little bit more vigor. And I put it upon myself to go door to door in my community. I was literally waking up on Saturday and Sunday and giving myself a 4-hour block to comb my neighborhood on foot, knocking on doors. And my whole resolve with that, I'm living on the South Side. It's not like one of them neighborhoods that you're going to be walking around too much on, or you got a big old bat with you or something else long in your book bag. But I said, well, hey, if these ladies can walk around on Sunday and Saturday and knock on door to preach about the gospel, I damn sure can do it. So I started doing the same thing, and I took that mentality, like I'm going to preach the gospel, like we got food security. So anybody with a hydrangea bush or azalea or any kind of sweet grass, I'm on your bumper. I'm knocking on your door. And it was not fruitful. I'm just fast track you. I did all that footwork for 4 weeks, 4 hours each day, Saturday and Sunday. I got goose eggs. And I had to take a step back because I am a realist. Even though I'm very optimistic, I'm very hopeful, I'm not the type who continues to dump my money or my water into a bucket with holes in it. And so I stepped back and I was like, man, it's got to be a better way. So I started advertising workshops or things like that on Instagram. And Instagram, I started to get a little bit more footing. And I was like, wow, this is a way that I can really isolate who I'm looking for. And maybe the pictures now, I can see that you're baking bread or going. And it's easier for me to kind of convey the message or invite you over. So I started using IG to populate, not populate, but to kind of fill in this community that I was looking for. And we really started to organize again with 2020 being the catalyst. And I have this thing called the theory of the necessary evil. And I'm saying 2020 had to happen for some of these people to take action. So I was grateful that it happened because now people are actually seeing the need to kind of take action in that way. So we were actually blessed to have 20 families in Atlanta join to us in 2020. And we started to actually dive into who's growing what, how much can you grow? Because again, I'm understanding that the land is a barrier here. What if this person grew squash and tomatoes and this person grew the root crop and this person did the herbal medicines and this person, and my idea was to spread the load. And I can be the chicken guy. I got 3 acres. I can have 50 chickens and I can be the egg guy for my community. And that's what we were proposing. And we started to work that work. And it was definitely a great stride. It was definitely a great effort. It did have some hiccups, but ultimately it works. It works. But it was still taxing because I couldn't find everybody. I didn't have a big platform. I didn't have a robust network. I might have had 2,000 followers. So I can only get as far as my reach was. And I was just like, man, this is the way. I know it's the way, but imagine if I had if I had the opportunity to reach more people, how easy this would be. And so I was really praying about it. And so it was put on my spirit. And I was like, man, I'm just going to have to dig in the pot. I'm trying to get out of debt, but I'm still like, okay, this is something that I think could work enough to where you can put some money behind it. And I actually refinanced my home and pulled the equity out. And I was going to build an app, and it was going to cost like $100K. And I was prepared to do it. Everything said that this is going to be the way to go. And I looked online, or excuse me, I was driving one day, and my wife was on Facebook, and she sent me this screenshot of this app, and it was Damien, and he made the app Farm Fresh 24/7. So I'm going to let him describe. Please, next slide first. I'm going to let him describe Farm Fresh 24/7.
Well, I'm Damien. I'm the founder and developer of Farm Fresh 24/7. I developed it back in 2017. Some of the reasons why I did develop it was, I'm going to step back to 2007. I don't have a slideshow or anything. 2007, I come from the desert in El Paso, Texas, where it's really hard to grow things. And, I struggled to try to grow flowers and stuff. And, finally I got like these flowers to grow in my front yard and the heat. And I was like, yeah, I enjoy planting things and growing things. But again, in the desert, it's really hard to grow, even grass. So at 2007, I actually bought a house in Ohio. So there had more fertile soil, and it was a big, huge property. And, I moved my family in, and I was like, I enjoyed planting. So I said, I'm going to make an attempt at gardening too. So I went out there, I took a pick, axe, and dug myself out. I don't know if it's still there. I dug a great area. So from there, I went to the store, bought some seeds. You know, I like tomatoes, I like jalapenos, I like, bought some fruit bushes and planted those in the backyard of my house. And these tomatoes, I was like, oh yeah, these heirloom tomatoes, they look big, they look juicy. I love tomatoes. I like cherry tomatoes. So what I did is, like you said, chaos gardening. I went out and just threw seeds out. I was like, all right, well, packet of seeds, maybe I'll get like 3 plants or something like that. And I did that for all this stuff. And I was like, all right. So I nurtured the garden as it go, and I started seeing all these plants just growing, tons of tomato plants, jalapeno plants, I had bell pepper plants, I had all kinds of, like, primarily a lot of tomato plants. I didn't realize how much tomatoes you can grow on one plant. So here I am with a family with 2 boys and myself, and it's just my family. And they started fruiting, and I started bringing them in, and they were just coming so fast. I was bringing them in. I had a counter that was probably 8 feet long, 3 feet wide. I stacked tomatoes this high on my counter, and I was like, "Whoa! I love tomatoes. I'm going to grow them. I'm going to eat them." But at the same time, I can't eat all these tomatoes. So what I did is I took them to work, gave them to friends, gave them to family, gave them to everybody I could. I still had a ton of tomatoes left over, and I was getting frustrated about the fact that time was going by. These tomatoes were starting to, get soggy and stuff like that. So I was just like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I was like, I wish I didn't have the barriers of, like you said, going in the knock. I was in a bad area of Ohio, in Youngstown, Ohio. So I mean, it was like knocking on doors too, where you had to like be vigilant about who you were knocking on the door and what they're coming to the door with. So I wanted to meet my neighbors. I wanted to give them to my neighbors. I wanted to give them to everybody around me. So I didn't waste them. But lo and behold, I eventually, instead of throwing them in the trash, I put them back out in my garden. And I heard you can compost and just put back in the garden. And that's what I did. And I still love tomatoes. Um, from that point on, I've been in the food industry for a while, restaurants. I manage restaurants, for primarily a lot of my years. And at the end of the day, being in corporate restaurants, you actually see, and we talk about the food waste, and in corporate ideas is like at the end of the day, whatever you have extra, you've got to throw it away. And you waste it into these dumpsters. And in order for like homeless people to come and get it, you have to throw bleach on it and stuff like that. So it's like prevent them from like getting this food. So one night, I was a general manager of a restaurant, and my supervisor came up, and it was the end of the day, and we had some leftover food. And I try not to have leftover food. That was like my main goal as a manager. It's frustrating. But sometimes you turn your back and somebody's cooking extra food at the end of the night and whatever, because the last people that come into the restaurant, you want to be ready for them or something like that. You want to fire up everything, whatever. Everybody's tired. So we were sitting there, we had to throw away all this food. And he was like, well, I said, I wish we could just give that to the homeless people, or we can give it to somebody or something like that. And he said, yeah, I wish so too. I see this. So I was like, yeah. And a little bit about my background is that, I have several patents that I've gotten for water purification using semiconductors. I was way ahead of my time. So that kind of like went to the wayside. And I like to innovate and I like to create things. So with this, I've dabbled a little bit in web development and teaching myself things. That's what I do. I like to teach myself. So with this, I went home that night and I was driving home and I was like thinking like ways that I could make this work on the web. And I've seen a lot of apps out there where people connect and stuff. I was like, well, how about I develop a blog? And in this blog, I would have like a WordPress blog where I could have comments where people can leave comments. It would be a local blog, so this way I could post my items that I had, or other people could post their items and they could respond and this and that. And I was like, well, that only works here locally. I was like, well, you know what? There's other apps out there. I was thinking, and I've used several apps out there, like OfferUp, like Go, stuff like that. These geographic, like location apps that actually pull in a certain radius and stuff like that of items and wherever you live and stuff. And I was like, well, how do I do that? So I contacted several development firms, and one quoted me $250,000, another one $300,000. I'm like, I don't have that kind of money. I don't. So I went back to my old skill set of like dabbling around, looking around, just I look at a lot of open source, and why reinvent the wheel? People are already doing this, and they love doing it for hobbies and stuff like that. So I actually just kind of just went in and really did a lot of research and a lot of work putting this all together. And, it took over 1,000 hours and, over a year. When I finished, I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Absolutely.
I finally got it done. I was like, yes, I'm done, and then I was like, well, how do I get people on? How do I get people to start using this?
Right.
And that was my next hurdle, was like, how do we do this? So I was like, all right, well, the only way I can do this is go out and meet some people in restaurants and stuff. And I did, and they got their friends to like post some items and stuff like that. And I was in Kentucky at the time, so there was a lot of farmers and stuff like that. We got in touch with a few of those, and they started posting some items. And I have to really like show them that people are actually responding. I don't have a user base to actually get to these people. So by doing this, I actually his name's Eli Durham. He's from Hummingbird Gardens. He posted a couple watermelons and a couple other things on there. Like a watermelon. So I want to test my app out. I went in there, I messaged him through the app, and he responded right away. And we met up in a Walmart parking lot right by our houses. And, it was like a central location. This way we could, not feel the fear of like going to somebody's house or whatever like that. So we knew each other. That's the whole purpose is you get to know the people that are behind your food you're growing. That's why I said, I believe food is toxic. Is that you get to know it, you get to make an informed decision about buying that food from the person on your own. And at the same time, you make that personal connection. So I did. My son and I got in a car, and him and his daughter met up at Walmart. We got out of the cars and we met, we shook hands, we talked a little bit. He had a box of these little tiny watermelons, and I was like, wow, these are awesome looking. And I asked him a few questions, and I got to know him as a person. I was like, well, I know him a little bit. So his daughter jumped out of the car. The truck, he's running there, hey, how are you? And she was really friendly girl. And she was like, I just want to let you know my dad grew that with chicken food. I was like, I don't mind. I don't mind. Like he said, oh, it's all right. I was like, I don't mind. I mean, it's natural. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for these synthetic fertilizers and stuff. I was like, yeah. So I made the informed decision to buy the watermelons, and after that, took it home, cracked it open. My son and I enjoyed it, and he sold out all of them on that day because he was so excited. He started spreading the word himself. So after that, it was like, well, I had a farmer. Then all of a sudden, I got another guy on there that he was like, well, I'm going to go on my Facebook groups and start spreading it, and people start putting it on. The problem was there wasn't enough information out there and enough people driving this. So it's like, it's chicken and egg. It's like, here's the shelves in the store on this app, and where's the people going to buy? What are they going to buy? So, I had to populate this for them to be interested. So I'm kind of like in a conundrum. And I was like, well, that's where it was. And I was just like, well, I got to figure this out. So,
yeah. That's,
my partner right here.
Yeah. Insert nature boy. So, again, I was really praying about it, y'all. I was really praying. I was really in a position where I was just like, man, the universe, give me a sign. I'm going to pull the trigger on this 100K. That's my last dollars. I'm going to spend it. And the universe basically sent me this app. And it's like, well, hey, if you're really about this, and this my whole edifice is like collaboration over competition. That's one of the things I always say. And it was like as if the universe was like, here you go. Now you have the option to just buy into this and be a part of this, or you can own it yourself and create your own. And of course, here we are, present day. And with the app Farm Fresh 24/7, I was able to get out in my community and get the word out even more expeditiously. I can reach more people because somebody can share the app to somebody I don't even know, and they can get on here and find me. They can find my workshops. They can find the produce I might have to sell. And so the app really started taking shape. We started organizing our own events called Growers Exchange. And so that group of 20 I had blossomed to 60 families in a season. And we started organizing our own Growers Exchanges where we met up at central locations. Sometimes it was parks, sometimes it was paid for venues, but we started to organize our own markets. And we started to barter with each other, and we started to exchange things, and we brought in education to our farm. So we utilized this community and all its resources using Farm Fresh 24/7. When our family, let's say my wife and I want to learn how to make soap, we made it a workshop. We then went to the app with the lady we buy our soap from, and we say, hey, can you teach us how to make soap? Would you be open to it? And that's how we started to engage the community even with even more of an effective way, because now the education doesn't have a shelf life. You don't have to take it, and you're actually planting the seed in someone else. So again, that's that stewardship principle. Like I'm going to embody you with the information and tools necessary for you to carry it out, and implore that you do the same. And so it really started spreading vigorously in Atlanta to present day. But this is the end of the presentation, y'all. I just really want to catch you up to present time. So right now, on the seller side, on the buyer side, put your mind of you going to the grocery store, you got your list together, you're going into your local grocer. What kind of pressures, what kind of anxieties are you feeling when you're doing your shopping right now? This is when the dialogue starts. The presentation is over. We want to get to the real nuts and bolts. What is everyone feeling when they visit their grocery store? I know for me, I'm cautious because of the bioengineered tag. I'm really like disheartened to buy anything from that aisle, because now they're just masking everything with bioengineered. And I think it's good because now we have the understanding of what it is, but it's bad because what if it's in everything? So that's one of the anxieties I feel often. The tag, the labels. What about you all? What say you?
I say oil.
Oils?
Well, like a lot of seed oils,
Mm-hmm.
they create this like gummy kind of liquid, and then they pull the oil out with hexane, and then they deodorize it, and then they bottle it. So it's shelf stable. It's like it's not an armpit. Why it should be deodorized.
Right.
But the hexane is a neurotoxin, but that's not on the label. It's not on the label. So
that's a part of that 20% that they don't have to list.
Safflower oil, or rapeseed oil, whatever, and there's nothing on there. It says, so those things that are toxic that we're not even aware of, you have to dig, and you have to dig in these places where it's hidden to actually find that.
Wow, I wonder what that does to the body. Who was that? Somebody else says?
Yeah, I have three of them. One, I don't know what the word is that I'm reading the label, and why I got to take a science class.
Yeah.
Is this vegetable really real, or if I put a lighter to it, will it burn? And who took the seed out of the food? Like,
right.
Who did that?
Right.
Who decided that for me?
Right.
So I have this conversation every time I go to the market.
That's a shame. Wow. Wow. Right. Out of necessity, right?
Yeah. I don't know what it is.
Wow. Anybody else? Please.
You can get something that you feel safe with, and then they will not tell you to change it. And so you're never feeling safe with the food that you're saying. And so for me, that's and something done to our food that we don't.
Absolutely.
It's kind of hard because I'm in a room with like-minded people, and I like this. But I also think through, am I typical of the whole population when I go to the grocery store? And you can tell from my accent I'm not from here.
Yeah.
So the first time I came here, went down to the grocery store, and I was like, there's an entire aisle of box mixed cakes. What the heck is this?
Yeah.
I have no idea. And then I saw the thing made with real cheese, as if this was a major selling point. And so this whole idea of convenience that we have built into our society has allowed us to allow these things to become the norm. I never made a cake in a box, ever.
Right.
And so there's a whole mentality to get changed, I think, as well. And it's lovely to have this movement that there's so much to be done in terms of education. So, the things we do with kids and get the kids to bring their grandparents or their parents, there's so much of that to be done to repair this removal from the source.
Absolutely.
And to remember that food is such a part of our culture and our community and the way we communicate with each other. It's not something we do on the run.
Right. Right.
It's not all about, I'll just shove a slice of pizza down my throat and keep on going.
Right.
So we've got to rethink
Absolutely.
our lives.
Absolutely.
And I think in some ways COVID allowed us a little bit.
Yes.
So I think we're in a place of opportunity.
Absolutely. Then I'm gonna come to you.
I think for me, being on the end of the is especially like now we think of like this
like Whole Foods. I remember when I was a bit younger, the advertisement used to be around local farmers, and that was a connection. I was so drawn to that, right? Like just talking like a 10-year
Right.
span here, and looking at it now, 10, 15 years later, it's interesting because when I walk in the store, what that buying was that so many of us rushed to and thought and spent our resources towards isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it'd be really difficult to go into some of these stores and really find something local, like knowing the farmers. Like I can list off farmers that I know, and still I could go into a store and not see anything from
Right.
that local
Right.
farmer.
Right.
So there's a huge disconnect here. Someone said that word earlier, was so spot on. There's a huge disconnect with what they're selling you and what is actually happening, right? And how they're changing the brand. When they talk about this illusion,
Yep.
that's how I see even life right now. Life is just a huge illusion. What it is that what you're being sold and what it is that you're actually getting.
Experiencing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like that goes in the idea of a lack of transparency, lack of authenticity,
Yes.
lack of accountability. And yeah, it's on the framework of this that allows it will continue. It's continuing to happen. We're all allowing it to happen.
Absolutely.
I can say I could clearly identify when I'm seeing the difference from being able to walk out of these same stores and see people from farmers markets and local and that shift change.
Right.
And being in those moments, like not feeling empowered enough to like ask the question, you know, or feeling like, oh, like maybe what can I do?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I do feel like realizing that the power is in the hands of the people and taking back that power.
Absolutely.
Is ultimately so much more important because the more we activate that and use, you know, our
feed
voice
it.
chakra,
Yeah.
it's gonna change
Absolutely.
a lot of it.
Absolutely.
So, because we can see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess this is sort of piggybacking off of a couple of things.
Absolutely.
But going to a grocery store, you're at the end line of this
Of the
insane
product.
supply chain.
Yeah.
Where things are grown in South America, shipped over to Asia for packaging, then brought all the way back here, so you can buy a can of fruit for $3. How does that make any sense whatsoever? Like, we're eating food that isn't in season because it's grown all over the place just to, you know, supply us.
Yep.
And we should be growing and eating the local stuff. And, you know, it's just not what most of us have been raised doing.
Absolutely.
It's not, you know,
There's
how our
nobody.
society is really set up. So,
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Eating in season is important. Like, again, the pressure is on us to make the change, and the power's in our hands. Yeah. I like that. So let's go to the other spectrum of the seller. What kind of issues are y'all seeing on the seller side? I wasn't trying to do that though, Damon. I wasn't trying to do that. Pull up the slide. Pull up the other one. Pull up the actual app. Yeah, we can close this down because I want to fast track this because really we can read this, but I really want to be more personable. So is any producers in the crowd too? Any farmers, gardeners, homesteaders, anyone who produces things? What kind of barriers are you seeing? What kind of feelings are you having towards the food system right now and how you impact it or cannot impact it?
I grew up in a not multi-generational, but a couple of generations, smallish scale apple and pear farm. And my folks are still doing that. And I would say, speaking for those sentiments amongst third of that scale, isolation, anger, and something like disappointment or shame at not being able to do it the way grandpa did it. These voices that are bigger than them, without necessarily as like clear a sense of the injustices, of like structural injustices necessarily, or like felt anger against those systems, certainly about like at themselves for not being able to make it work.
Right.
And just sort of like, the sort of bootstraps myth of like having to do it alone.
I worked at HelloFresh in New Jersey, right? So the idea, I heard is they source out local farmers to produce the food for their recipes that you order, right? And so as a customer service agent, I had to speak to the farmers and I had to speak to the customers. So the customer's complaint was that the food that was advertised, the food they received did not look like the food they could have got from the supermarket. And from the sellers or from the producers, it was like the food that we produce does not look like the food at the supermarket.
Right.
And so this whole image that this is what this product's supposed to look like, but that's not true.
Yeah.
And the truth, I had to constantly tell them, well, this is I think I learned that okra has different species. Like, so this particular farmer had this
different okra,
because it is. And I never seen an okra this small. Like,
right.
Like, okay, but your advertisement that you're seeing and you're idolizing from the
grocery store
marketing, it's not reality. So now farmers are getting frustrated. They want to pull out the program and things because now as a company to be substantial, now you have to produce this in order for you to stay in this program. And it was just like a constant headache back and forth. And then when he had. So it was and so just to understand, and then also the shelf life. Like a lot of time I had to explain to them the things that was put on your food to get to you, you don't do that. So your food, because of traffic and what's going on with traveling deliveries, it kind of the cardboard kind of diminished it. But you're still getting a healthier version of what you'd have gotten in the supermarket that's sprayed. And so all of that really just frustrated me.
Absolutely.
But that's the constant conversation. People's lack of or delusional.
I was gonna say the illusion.
Versus the reality of what's really happening on the farm because you didn't go there. That disconnect. You don't know what's really happening. Even when you're communicating, it's still a disconnect.
Absolutely.
I think being able to see and be able to connect with your local food and your local farmer, being able to reach out and have that, I feel like should be more accessible for people. Now, in this time, we have that. There's enough awareness. That's what I would.
Absolutely. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, but now I don't even. I have lots.
Go and let it out there. Let it out.
Lots of thoughts that kind of piggybacked off of yours talking about can't do it like Grandpa did it or whatever. I guess first off, there's one grocery store in my area, just one. No other place sells food. You have to drive about an hour, a little over an hour if you want to go anywhere else. No competition. The prices are ridiculously high. That was my thought with the grocery store one. But then also, when you were talking about going to the country and the people and their mindset, it's so true. I work for a nonprofit. We have a community garden, and to get people involved in it is a disaster because most people have the mindset of production farming, like in the Depression era, where everyone was growing large amounts of foods for families, and that's great. It's good to be able to take care of your family that way. But I think people still think of gardening or farming in that mindset, and they don't. They're not interested in it because first off, when you're growing acres and acres and acres, that's a lot of work.
It's a whole lot of work.
It's a whole lot of work, and you don't have the same mindset. Like my thing is permaculture. I really love that concept, but. I think people have the mindset of production farming and don't realize that there are a lot of other options, with growing your own food.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else want to chime in on the buyers? 1 and 2.
I love the thought process because the hardest thing from a seller's perspective on my end of trying to get a homestead started is just how transactional the process of selling things are. Like I attended the Western North Carolina Mutual Aid class before this, and they were talking about how a lot of homesteaders feel like they need to be this kind of nuclear family. Like it's just like one compact unit, you just grind your ass off and just make it work. And it feels so much more gratifying when you build a relationship instead of just having a transactional kind of relationship.
Absolutely.
Because then it builds that.
Absolutely. 1000%. No, absolutely. And I think it's hard to market from where we stand looking back. from where we stand going forward with the new community, new culture being built, it's very much like a plausible cause. Like we can do that. And that's really what our app was built to facilitate. On the seller side, we built it so you can have that transparent market. We like to call it the transparent market because now you can go to a seller's home, or excuse me, a seller's farm, maybe meet up at a parking lot, maybe meet at a park, meet in a public place and exchange the goods there. Ask the questions. What did you put in? How did you grow your soil? Grow your soil. How did you grow? But that's a real thing too. That's a real thing too. How did you grow that? Like, did you use Miracle Grow? And if you say that, I might be like, well, no, thank you. Thank you for no, thank you. I can have that transparent model available because now I get to go to that person's site. I can go there, and I'm saying that as the buyer side, the seller side. When people come to my farm, that's another reason that's a benefit for the buyer side is I don't have to cut anything or prematurely. I don't have to harvest anything prematurely. Literally, when the person comes down, that's when I'll do it. And 9 times out of 10, I'll let them do it because now it's more of that energy exchange. They get to really pull the carrots up. They get to cut the green. I'm showing you this is where you snap the greens off because this is how it grows. So it becomes like this mini lesson. And a 15-minute quick visit never happened. So it always is at least 45 minutes. And we're getting to know each other. So that's the beauty of our app. We actually took out the payment gateway. So that function has to be there because we believe that the culture, the community is the base of anything that's going to sustain. And this new model that we're trying to bring in is necessary to have that community, that relationship being built so that you understand exactly where your food is coming from. Again, as a consumer, you can have the opportunity to ask all the questions you need to ask. And 9 times out of 10, the thing that I believe is the best as a consumer, going to my soap lady and saying, hey, I'm having an issue with eczema patches on my youngest. Like, is there something you can add to the soap? I'm getting to customize my soap. And because she's doing batches that are not, well, I don't know how she quantifies it, but I know I'm paying for a handmade, almost custom bar of soap, and I'm paying $4. Dr. Squatch is $8 a bottle. I think Dove is like 6 and some change. And it's like, I'm getting high quality. And then she makes food soap. So I'm talking about, I walk into this lady's house. She brings me in. She shows me her whole setup. I'm through the house like I'm family. I'm in the backyard, she doesn't know me from anybody. It's not because I'm Nature Boy or Farm. No, she doesn't know me. It's just like, this is the spirit that we're bringing to it. The model is, come on to the back. Let me show you my Mexican sunflowers. Let me show you this. And let me show you, this is where I pulled this from. And she's introducing what food soap is to me. And her theory was, if it's good for your outside, it should be good for your insides. And I'm getting schooled on soap. And it's like the transparency again is within the model. So as the seller, the seller, as a buyer, the transparent model is evident and is applicable. But as a seller, I can now, again, with not much reach, not much social media presence, this app puts you in direct reach for a 50-mile radius for people to find you. So anybody who downloads this app and puts in Madison County, you can click on it and diminish the radius, but you're going to only see things. We don't have a diminish here. This is world view. But we can diminish the radius to where you only see the things in the area. So now you can have that assurity of, I know exactly who's coming to visit me. Maybe I don't want to spend time trying to package things because we're basing our community on convenience. And people are used to saying, hey, I just want to buy it and have it sent to me. No, now the people are coming to you and you know for sure they're in your arena and they're getting to meet you. So they are probably more likely to come back if they have a great experience. So again, this app is facilitating on both sides that transparent model. And then again, having that reach be made. And we don't have a robust marketing network. We're going straight up grassroots, word of mouth, because we feel like this app is necessary. I think with people, we hope that, you would take it upon yourself to introduce the app to your community because it's only going to benefit you as a producer or a consumer. Somebody had their hand up.
I was just wondering, are you able to, as a seller,
Say it again.
Yes.
Can you say that one more time?
as a seller, if you have a privilege?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So it is a aspect on here where you can market for free and give it away. So that's a lot with the distinction of waste and not maybe needing a lot of this stuff, you can definitely give it away on the app as well. So it can meet that mutual aid construct. And again, the people who need it can find you now on this app.
I'm just a practical hands-on person. I'm thinking through in terms of how does a buyer connect with this person who's selling this to actually get that physical need done? And also, as a seller, what's the process for getting your presence on here as a seller?
So this app is 100% free. So basically, it's the dual composition of the experienced producer, and then understanding from the seller's point of view and the tech side how to mold the app for specificity. So one of the biggest barriers for a new first generation farmer or homesteader is we think we have to go to the market to sell our things. And now you have to get your booth set up. You got to pay for your sign. You got to pay for your booth rent. You got to drive there. You got to get your prep day. So Friday, your whole Friday is tied up getting your things washed and bagged and tagged and ice in the cooler. And now you get to Saturday where you set up and you sit there all day in the sun and you might have only sold 40%. And now you have to lug it all the way back home to do it again on Sunday. And it's repetitive. And again, I'm saying it's not sustainable. It's repetitive and unsustainable. And I'm saying as a new generation farmer, first generation homesteader, that's not the way. That's too difficult. In 2020, birthed the whole influx of gardening enthusiasts and sustainability enthusiasts and conscientious consumption. So now we want to get a place that's affordable to give them to procure their goods hyper locally and have that transparent system. So this app is 100% free to download on Google app and Apple stores, free to post, treat it like Facebook Marketplace or offer up. So the community puts their things on the app. You don't have to be a farmer per se. You can definitely be a hobbyist, and we're encouraging people of all spectrums to get on the app because you might just grow mint one year. You know how mint do, and you might just have a lot of mint you need to get rid of. You can throw your mint on here. Or maybe you're somebody who just started baking and maybe you just make a couple loaves a month. You have the flexibility to put it up there and take it down as you choose. Anybody familiar with the Kellogg's boycotts going on? Kellogg's? Nobody? What?
I don't eat Kellogg's.
I know, man. It's a whole thing going on right now where people are boycotting Kellogg's. And just look it up when you go home. I'm sure nobody's on TikTok here either. Yep. This happened again. This happened the last class too. This is amazing. It's beautiful because I think this is where a lot of people are, where we're kind of detaching from technology. And this app, I know it seems like, hey man, it's technology nature, boy, wake up. Our premise of this app is to isolate or be intentional about creating a community on this app that is solely based on food security and sustainability. And then we're encouraging people again to meet up in person and create those real life relationships so that you can get off of the app and disengage and actually know the address of where your farmer lives or your baker or your soap lady or your herbalist, and you actually have ties to them. So that actually brings about the third phase of our app, which is, I like to call it the prosumer phase. It's a culture that we're establishing within the app, and I call it the tertiary stage because it's buying, selling, and then eventually, I'm saying, because this is a radical app. This is not like, we're not trying to play the game. We're saying the game is rigged and we're stepping away from the game in totality. So this app is encouraging the bartering. We're encouraging that. So you actually have a part on your description where you can actually put in giving away or exchanging. So we're encouraging prosumerism. That means in our philosophy is, in order for us to change the food system in its current disparity, we all must take a position in the food system. That again is one of those radical things where I'm like, you cannot, the 2% of farmers feeding 98% of the country should not sit well with you. It should be something that turns your stomach. That means somebody else, again, that's just me. That's like EBT to me. I'm relying on somebody else to feed me and my family. I can't do that. And I'm not pouring back into them. And now we're looking at the money looking funny. The money is not the value now, because if the farmer is hungry and you're giving the money and all he has, and I've seen this firsthand as a farmer. The farmers sell all their produce at the market. They take the money and then go to the grocery store. Most absurd thing I've ever seen, but it also disheartening. But again, we're moving past capitalism and we're saying we need to attach ourselves to the raw resource. And that's always going to be the value. The fiat currency is just the middleman. And so the third stage is when you become, let's say you start off as a buyer, you slowly are encouraged to learn something, put something in your wheelhouse, find something that you can not necessarily be passionate about, but maybe it's something that you need. Maybe it's start where 5 items out of your own home, you pick one and you say, okay, I'm going to learn this. And this is going to be the thing I do for my community. So as I'm pulling from the soap lady and I'm pulling from the bread lady, maybe someone can teach me how to do it. And I don't know about y'all, but I've never met a stingy gardener in my life at all. And if you ask, hey, how did you grow those flowers? They're going to walk you in. They're going to put you under the wing and say, hey, you can come back again tomorrow if you want to grab some of these starts or seeds. That's the culture of gardening. We're pouring into each other's biomimicry, essentially. So that's basically what we're saying is prosumerism is that third and necessary step where we all actually have stake in the food system because we all produce something. And as we pull out, we have something to give as well so that it sustains. We're saying, no, this app is 100% free. We only take donations. Donations fund this app. So if our community base says that we're doing something funny that they don't agree with, let's say down the line, advertisement starts popping up in the app that you're getting double the advertisements as you are for the products, you can now stop giving to the app. You can show that this app is not functioning well. We're going to remove our money. We're encouraging that. Our community is basically our board, our steering committee. It's everything. If you all get on the app and donate, you become a member, you'll get a little tab like this. It's just something to show that, hey, I got skin in the game. I really care about this system. I really care about creating something new for my children and their children and for the sake of the earth and our connection. And then the last intention we have is organizing within our communities. We have a grassroots movement called Collectively Sustainable. Damien has a shirt on right now, where we're building offline. And again, our app is designed for us to find each other, because that's the biggest problem I had, again, was finding the like-minded people in my community. With this app, you can find each other, and then we're encouraging you to start building offline. So with that Collectively Sustainable, it's another secondary application, believe it or not, that we use where we're funneling everybody into hyperlocal channels. So now you don't have to look for those people with intention. They become a member. If they want to opt into organizing the organizational piece, they can opt into being a member on the Collectively Sustainable side, where now we're actually sharing information, strategies for how you can start galvanizing your community. Hey, try this out at the library. Maybe we have resources to share. And again, if social media or something gets banned or blocked or shut down, we still have a way to converse. And then again, with that intention, we're saying we're starting to build these connections of micro solidarity wherever we are, and we're connecting with people who resonate in efforts to reach across the towns or the states and connect with other little communities who are also doing the same thing. So that is our presentation for today for hyperlocal food systems. Let me see what time it is. Any more questions? Anybody have anything to add? No, all clear? What do y'all feel about it? Let me see, we got 7 minutes. What's on your mind? What's your thoughts about our system? Any critiques or anything that you see in the foreseeable future that might be a hiccup?
Are y'all worried about like bots? I'm not a tech person. Like, like Facebook Marketplace is full of weird scams now. Yeah.
We already have that.
You have? Okay.
Yeah, but then again, that's why the emphasis as we removed our payment gateway, so we don't take any cut of the money. There's no transaction fees. We're saying, no, go meet the person. Go meet.
Right. Still in person.
You got to meet in person.
Yeah.
We're not, and if the person says, hey, I'll send it to you, that's sidebar. That's another story. But we're saying the culture of what we're doing is we're telling you to meet up hyper locally. That's the important factor, because we know that some things are going on across the seas, some things that we might be experiencing ourselves within fiat currency, maybe stumbling or collapsing. And we need to be able to rely on people in our community. We need to have people in a walkable distance. And the more we spread this app out, the more we populate and find each other, the smaller our radius gets for uh, consumption or procuration of our goods. And that's really the end goal, is again to get off of the app. We got to use technology to our benefit. But again, those socials and those outings that we were organizing were very, very, very impactful and important, because it also facilitated and fostered that community feel. And we started to really connect on emotional levels. And again, that's where the magic happens. That's where everything happens.
If you remove the payment option, how do you donate?
How do you what?
Donate.
Donate. So it's a membership button right there. And again, it's not necessarily the membership itself. Can you click on it, please?
It's an outside thing. We don't have it on your phone.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So yes, it's a donate page, and that's it. It's through the app, so you can get there and donate whatever you feel. And again, it's going to lead you to another email. And if you so choose, if you feel inclined, if you feel that it's serious enough for you to be the one to organize in your arena, then you can become a member after you fill out the little application, if you will. But you don't have to be a member to use the app. Again, it's 100%, 1000% free. It will always remain free. But if you feel inclined again to organize, and you feel the need and compelled to meet up with people in your area, we're creating those channels where you can find each other, be plugged into the system.
Question for you. It sounds like you were inspired to start this app and you were working in the restaurant industry and there was waste going out. Have you found restaurants that are dovetailing into this and posting their food, or have y'all shifted away from working through the restaurant industry and like it sounded like it was like rehoming waste to the homeless community?
Which is definitely a part of this. Just a matter if it's adopted by that.
Mm-hmm.
We're slowly like taking one industry at a time. So we're open to having anybody. Like I said, it's free for anybody to use. I know a lot of chefs in Charleston actually are getting onto this and starting to access local goods, because they do that on a daily basis. Everything's about.
I think so for us, it was more so getting away from capitalism and creating a new route. And that prosumerism is really the thing, because again, it's like we have to take some level of responsibility for our food system ourselves. And I put it to where the average 9-to-5er, the regular worker, the person that isn't really educated, can have some kind of entry level that doesn't have a barrier attached to it to introduce themselves into the food system. So we're so more pouring into the local level rather than the corporations or any entities to sustain the movement. We're saying, no, we'll sustain it. And from here, we can go anywhere. Because if we're actually the product makers and the buyers, and we're circulating our own money in our own element, then we don't really need that outside force. But if they come in, it's going to be well received. We can actually disperse it a little bit more efficiently. But for the grassroots movement, the bottom where we are, is more so regular households who have started to adopt that victory garden mentality, or getting chickens. And then again, we're saying, hey, you can disperse the load and be collectively sustainable rather than trying to do it all yourself.
My question was, I hear you saying that you go to the local grower, seller. Do you have a way to have them connect at some point, like gatherings or, something that brings the community? This is great. And I'm just thinking like, some, like, say, for example, if I wanted to buy something, I wanted to connect with somebody, but even as a woman, it might be easier for me to build that connection if, you were having a gathering and then I met a bunch of people at that gathering, and it would make me feel more comfortable to go to that
do it
person.
again. Yeah. So that's basically, it would be up to you to, so that's where the framework of collectively sustainable comes in, because on that outside website, that other portal we have to talk freely without being shadow banned or shut down, I can articulate exactly how I got it going in my area, and I can articulate how the socials are crucial to building that trust in your community. But it would then be on you. Again, that's what we're proposing, is like, hey, if you feel inclined and you feel like it's a worthy thing to throw your weight at, that's where you should be. You should be the one to say, hey, I'm going to put it on in my community. I'm just saying, hey, go to a local park. Don't rent out a venue. Do these types of things. Maybe have everybody bring something. And so I can steer it from that aspect of information and wisdom. But yeah, so it's really driven by the community. So it can be expansive or as small as we want to make it.
I was just wondering if y'all knew if restaurants would have some barriers or
It was just who the owner is, because they can now use this app to procure their goods.
so there's no like.
So, oh, well, I don't know, but this is the thing. I'm gonna just say this. It's almost like legally you're supposed to drive 70 miles an hour on the highway. That's illegal, right? I'm just saying. So again, this is the I'm not gonna say the revolution. I'm not gonna say it like that, but this is we have to do it. It has to be like a hell or high water type thing. This is our sustenance. This is our very being. Are we going to continue to allow them to be distrustful, unethical, no morals, raising the price and the quality is going down? Who's going to be the one to check them? And I'm saying, I'll do it. I'll be the one. And I think it's enough of us say it and enough of us start to break the rules. If them jokers come down my driveway, I'm not doing, it's nothing.
So as the collective side of it, you then kind of like charge the person who organized it to have the morals to pick, like to solicit it to buyers that also share the value of the app, and creating safe spaces for everybody.
It's like a friend of a friend. It's like a friend of a friend. It's like the app is not going to really leak out to a lot of people because who's buying bread now? And again, that's why the prosumerism is so important. That's very important, because with this comes a lot of people who just come with the dollar and they think their money is the thing that's going to get them in there. And while that may be true, and I'm saying this from my point of view, I have eggs. I have people who reach out and buy eggs from me. But if I put in a little description under the description of the item, I say willing to barter, though, willing to take off $1 per 1 gallon of food scraps you bring me. Now, the person with the food scraps, the intention of bringing the food scraps, they're going to get a lower price. I'm going to sell to you first. So that money doesn't move me anymore. I want that resource that you have. So again, that prosumerism kicks in to where I know the culture of the app. So that's, again, why collectively sustainable is important. That's where our culture statement is. That's where our vision statement, our mission, that's where we create the culture and what we're doing. And then we abide by it on the app. So we're the.
I'm going to start it off. I want eggs.
You want
This is
eggs?
an example of the description.
You say you want in or you want eggs?
I want eggs.
In. You in there. You in there. You in there. All you got to do is download. You in there.
I want to organize.
That's it. All you got to do. And you can donate. We're encouraging people to make a monthly donation. It could be $1. It could be $5, whatever. And we also encourage people to try the app out. If you're worried about not getting a return, try it out for a while, see if it works. And if you 3 months, you say, yeah, this app is worth $10 a month. I'm going to donate now. I'm going to donate once in my life. You can still be a member. You can still move the same way. It's going to be no limits. All right. Thank you. I appreciate y'all. Please share it if you feel inclined. If you know somebody or a farmer's market, let them know.
That's all I do.
My family's still